Gambling addiction, detection and treatment.
Thank you very much for hanging around for this session. As Zadine rightly said, we touched upon this yesterday in terms of, I think, more in the context of A, gambling problem, but B, how ludicrous an affordability test would be, in the African market, given that people are plainly betting more than they can afford. I thought it might be quite useful, not only as an interesting segue into Dion describing the addiction counselling platform that his company has built, but also to just give you a snapshot of what's happening in other jurisdictions at the moment and mistakes that have been made as well. So going back, to the early days of the internet, there was precious little information on issues surrounding social responsibility, on gambling addiction. The casinos at that point in time relied upon, as Dion knows very well, some very rudimentary questionnaires that they sort of thrust into people's hands in a casino to try and get them to be honest about, if they had gambling problems. But of course, again, in the internet environment, that became very problematic. So as a consequence, by incremental chunks, the UK regulator, the Gambling Commission, has now gone to an extreme level of consumer-led, really nanny state protections for gambling, almost to the point at which, if anyone even minutely overspends, they are called out as having a gambling problem. And it's a raft of regulations that sit underneath this that are made compulsory part of the operator's license conditions, that they must go above and beyond to ensure that they have protected the player. So those protections are many layered. They include providing information for problem gambling. They include obligations on the operator to stop people gambling, i.e. be proactive. What they also do is now insist that there is a compulsory affordability check, which for the greater part, given that that is a sort of almost an intrusion on someone's civil liberties and a natural reluctance for people to share that much financial data online, security reasons, data privacy protection, all the rest of it. So in those circumstances, what you're finding is a fall off of people who are accessing the regulated sites, and they're going to unregulated sites where they'll get no degree of protection. So the UK government has gone, or the UK regulator certainly has gone to the other extreme. We also have huge, as Dion noted, huge advertising restrictions. So our advertising now, from a gambling perspective, went crazy when our new act came in 2007 because it allowed television advertising for non-lottery products for the first time. Everyone went mad, with all the different channels around sports and everything. It was basically hard to move in the UK, wasn't it? You had all these gambling adverts. But the problem is now, the gambling adverts have been constrained. So, for example, there have been loads of complaints about Paddy Power for deploying humour in a gambling ad because it has to be very sober. And you also have to put the strapline into everything, a bit like financial services advertising, investments may go up and down. So, again, the operators are curtailed in terms of advertising constraints. And to cap it all, the other thing that the UK government has done has been to introduce personal responsibility on the operators. So there have been several instances where there have been failings of a company, the company is the one that holds the license, they have made the people in key positions directly accountable to the Gambling Commission. And not only can you have your personal license revoked, you can be fined. Obviously, the PML can be revoked, but you can be criminally prosecuted as well. So again, as I stand here as a PML holder myself, my problem with that is you're going to quickly get a race to the bottom because nobody will want to do these jobs if they're all being held personally accountable. Now, we realise that we've taken a number of increasing baby steps to get to the point where I think now we've got something unworkable in the UK, and no one is expecting, I think, to use that as a decent blueprint. But at least I think from what we're going to be talking about, I think we can start to highlight what is achievable and what mistakes we've made and what you probably don't want to implement or ever see implemented in another jurisdiction. So just on that point, Dion, as a first point, do you think the UK has now gone too far?
Absolutely. Here's the fundamental things that we found in our research. And the point is, first off, this is my life. You're coming in with these restrictions into me personally. I'm going to be defensive of my right to do what I want. We have a strap line, as you mentioned, with Gamble Aware and these things in the UK. When the fun stops, stop. Who's going to listen to that? If I want to gamble, forget that. Yeah, I saw it and move on. But what we recognize is different. Your life, your choice, your future. And that's centered around education. We found people needed to be educated, but in a way that they are part of it. It's like being an actor instead of being told. So what we found was your life, helping them to recognize your life is not just you. It's your wife, it's your kids, it's that circle around you, because your decisions affect your life. And this was what we realized that people wanted to hear. But then this also goes to the gambling companies, is my choice. It's my choice. If I choose to gamble inside of a regulated site, that's my choice. But I need to understand that my choice impacts my life. And then we, at the end of it, is your future, because whatever you do now. So that's fundamental. The question that you raised in reference to the gambling companies and it being very restrictive is because now it's encroaching on my personal right to exist and choose. And that's the fundamental problem that I've seen over this entire time, but it is very intrusive.
It is, and in terms of obviously the high level of people being in denial as well, like any kind of addiction. But I think that if you could describe the metaverse platform that you've created and the difficulties that we have seen played out, how we have tried to find ways in which to creatively combat those.
Right.
For example, use of avatars, early access to information for everybody, not just the person who's gambling.
Yeah. The fundamental thing we need to start to recognize that gambling addiction is not just the gambling company's problem. Gambling addiction is a societal problem, just like drug addiction, just like alcohol addiction. It is a societal problem, and it's a community problem. You're going to only get the data when you talk to the community. How much data comes from an actual gambler? So you got that, and you got society and things like that. So what we did was we said, okay, where's the connection between me being the person and my addiction? I lost my father to crack addiction. My father was my hero. And that was what drove me into this. So I knew that my father in a small hometown, if that door was red, and that's the only addiction clinic in my town, in my village, in my city, will I walk through that door? The answer is no. Because someone might see me, and then it'd be all around the city that Dion's got an addiction problem, so they won't go. So what's the solution? Looking at metaverse, I hate that word, but looking at metaverse technology, if I can convert you to an avatar, disconnect myself, but I am that avatar, I am connected, and then build a virtual world. So literally we built a virtual island for the treatment of addiction. It literally is a virtual metaverse. We've been working on that for 4 years. And the idea and principle is I'm in the avatar. They are then placed in that environment. While I'm in there, I am anonymous. So I take away the demonization to me personally, and therefore I act in this space as an actor in my own story. So therefore, and then we bring all the addiction support into that virtual world. So they don't have to travel, oh, my aunt didn't take me to the therapist or whatever, because I'm now immersed in this technology. The technology is browser-based, so it's easy to get to. But we then have therapists there. You can go in, and we have also ability where therapists come in and give free time to people inside the environment. So it literally is a virtual island to treat it. And therefore, these people feel safe, they feel supported, they feel connected to each other. So that's the idea, community supporting them.
Exactly, and also as well in relation to overcoming some of the other problems that you get with addiction counselling is the availability of counsellors. Well, they can log on anytime they want from home.
Yeah.
Likewise, language support as well.
That's correct.
Which is also really important. Again, we heard that again yesterday. That's slightly problematic in terms of information. But the richness of the world that you've created, it goes far beyond, as I said, the specific issue, and also not just the destigmatizing, but actually it's all about education as well, and getting people having access to that information at an early stage. And I think that one of the other problems that we've seen, as I said, with the sort of bricks and mortar type questionnaires that are compulsorily trotted out to people they think has got a problem, normally it's like I don't know, doing are you outgoing personality tests, and it's A, B, or C, and it's so obvious if you want to be an outgoing personality, you choose C, and all of the questions are really loaded and pejorative, so it's, do you have a gambling problem? Answer yes or no. Well, more like as not, you're going to put no, really, rather than trying to find out at an earlier stage, and I think you're using, aren't you, artificial intelligence to seek questions from people where they're not aware. By giving the answer, they have actually given away an awful lot more than the question would suggest. So smart questionnaires, if you like, which don't involve the blunt, do you have a problem? Or the other one, or, do you find yourself obsessing about gambling, spending more money than you can afford to lose, blah, blah, blah.
And in reality, it goes back to community. If I include my community when I'm comfortable, that is about community support. You're never going to address addiction without that community support. Therefore, the gambling industry is part of that community, my immediate family, the other stakeholders involved. So by being able to be part of a community, one of the things that we recognize is I'm more likely to give information about my addiction if I feel supported and the other things I talk about. And I am in a safe space to be able to do that. I'm not going to get trolled. I'm not going to be splashed across some news channel that I spent more than I can afford. So it's a safe environment to get accurate, real-time information that will inform support, that will inform the industry, but it's coaxed more than just, you have to fill this out or we will stop you. People are going to rebel against that type of structure and has done. Hence, why haven't we been able to deal with addiction for all these years?
Exactly. Also, just in terms of sort of lessons almost learned or not almost learned, you may be aware that in terms of the US, there's been a massive explosion of legalized sports betting ever since PASPA was repealed in 2018. But they are, they're still in party town in terms of, social responsibility issues. So last year, the big big six operators came together to pledge more commitment to social responsibility. Although, as you rightly say, Dion, it's not only operators who are responsible, but it's a good start given that they're the ones with the deeper pockets. So, I think that you spoke yesterday about the work that you've done with the tribes. It'd be interesting to describe as well how he's of the metaverse word I can't use. I'm sorry,
yeah.
Web3, whatever. The work that you've done there to create their own community. As an element to that he has created an addiction counselling, because obviously high rate of gambling, high rate of drugs and alcohol problems, particularly prevalent where, and some of these tribes are rolling in money, so there's a lot of leisure time to not only treat themselves, but also on all the Native American Indian tribes casinos that they run. They are obviously rolling that out as a program across to all the other players that come in to their casinos.
Yeah, quickly, I'm really excited about that. That's a deal that was done last year after a lot of work. So when you look at Native American Indians, we all know potentially what has happened to them in the history of America. And they're sovereign, extremely proud, but look at the ravage that has gone through the Native American Indians. I'm proud to say that we are linking 574 tribal nations together in a tribal metaverse, but we are also putting our addiction platform inside of that for education support. So it's a really big deal for us, but they are excited because it's about their sovereignty, taking care of their own. I want to take care of my own people versus you coming in and taking care of us. It is about sovereignty, and that would apply in any country, any community. It is about that level of sovereignty and community support. So we're excited about that project.
And that brings me very neatly on to another point that I wanted to sort of raise and discuss, is that, when does a problem become an addiction? at that point, and how localized do we need to be? Because I think we need to understand better the propensity to gamble that is peculiar culturally to certain countries. And certainly, obviously, in Africa, we're aware of very big sports betting, but it's a very communal thing. We've heard about how esports is taking off as well, but this whole idea of a peer-to-peer activity, peer-to-peer participation, wagering is an obvious adjunct to that, and rational thinking around affordability is not there. And also, likewise, in terms of probably from the academic papers that I've read, a great deal of aspirational betting, by which I mean that people are not betting because they are spending time, having a bit of fun, having a leisure activity. What they're doing is aspirational betting because they want to win. So a bit like you see with lottery players. And, ironic really, because when we launched the lottery in the UK, we had the totally socially irresponsible strap line that went with it, which, it could be you. And that was allowed on television advertising. You can imagine how the operators just went mad about that, because it's never going to be you. Or it's very, very, very unlikely to be you. And, read the statistics, more likely to die in a terrorist bomb, et cetera, et cetera. So just to that point, do you think there's a powerful message here for localization and, possibly solution for Africa is incremental steps? It's not everything, everywhere all at once.
Yeah. Again, it's about, to me, I'm going to take it back to society. I'm going to take it back to community. It's focusing on that. There's nothing wrong with me going to a casino or going to a legal site to have fun. At the end of the day, this is the entertainment industry. It is about, again, the education, and also it's about community. If I gamble and I know that I can afford what I lose, but if there's impact coming back into my community, I feel good about it. There's a warm, fuzzy feeling that, okay, I had a good night out. I lost $100, but I know that the industry is putting back into the community. It's that circle that for me, is critical in this. So it is about community and community education.
Exactly. So I think that our takeaway from it is that, as I said, no one's coming here preaching to anyone about social responsibility addiction issues. We recognise it's a problem that exists in Africa. You don't have to solve the problem with a magic wand. There can be incremental steps. And those incremental steps can be actually quite small to begin with. Education, explaining to people their impulses, why they do it, giving them access to counselling should they wish to have it. Even if that falls short of affordability, it doesn't mean then you can't do anything. I think operators need to be more responsible. Good causes, giving back to the community. Even something which we haven't seen in the UK, which we are far short on at the moment, is some kind of victims' compensation fund. Not proving the operator's done anything wrong, but in clear cases of hardship, at least you've got some kind of ombudsman or someone you could appeal to, and there's a fund in the same way as any other kind of victims' compensation fund.
Really quickly, because I'm aware of the time, but here's the thing that we've learned during that time that me and you talk about. It's about social responsibility, but what's harm? But what about sustainable gambling? At the end of the day, it is an entertainment, legalized, but it's about helping to understand that you could have sustainable gambling, whereby, again, that support comes into the community. There is a give and take with reference to my favorite brand that I enjoy, but it's about helping them to reach a sustainable, instead of just turning around and saying a hard stop, because you're never going to be able to do that. It's about readjusting the mindset that it is okay, it's legalized, but be sustainable, because I can take care of the other responsibilities that I have in my life.
Time, so thanks very much, Lee.